Hi everybody! Look at all these notebooks! So welcome to this video. This is going to be part one of a two-part video set, kind of detailing in first my 2023 recap in terms of what notebooks, what journals, what planners I used. And then part two is going to have my 2024 lineup. I wanted to do this all in one part, but I haven't received all of the notebooks that I'm going to be using, or all of the planners that I'm going to be using in 2024, and I still have to figure that out a little bit. So I didn't want to delay too much on giving you guys what I ended up using in 2023, in case that might spark any ideas for you guys. So yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to go in order, I think. Okay. I don't have anything scripted. I mean, I usually don't have anything scripted, but today I feel like there's a specific type of chaos involved. Okay. So, first notebook I ended up buying in 2023 was this 5-year diary. I think this is Midori. Yeah. And I don't know if you can see it. I'm not seeing it in the viewfinder, but it's very possible that you will be able to see it on camera. There's a bunch of hairs on this. I have cats. If you have cats, you know what you know. There's hairs on everything. And this material is a cat hair magnet. So there's that. I did end up buying this 5-year diary, and I think I mentioned in another video before I even continue with that I had fallen off of the journaling planning game, at least analog form. I've used apps kind of like Todoist and Notion for a couple years now, but I fell off of the analog planning train for a few years, and I ended up watching some videos towards the beginning of, well, maybe not the beginning of 2023. It was more around maybe May, June, July, August, the summer of 2023. I ended up watching a lot of videos by AVEC, and then there was this one Australian creator. Oh, what is his name? James Burke. James Burke has the 5-year journal, and he uses the Hobonichi, well, 5-year diary. But I ended up looking. There was another creator though. Cannot remember. Long story short, I ended up buying the Midori one, and I ended up filling it out. And actually, you know what? I 100% lied. I might have watched a video end of 22 because I first started this journal in January. So yeah, hold on. Yeah, there's like a little bit of information I don't want to show. I did start this journal 121. So I must have watched something towards the end of 22 that made me want to start the 5-year journal. And I thought that it was going to be a perfect time because this year was the year that I moved cross country, right? And left everything that I had ever known behind. Not to sound dramatic, but I really did do that, right? And I was going to be moving just by myself. So I felt like this was going to be the perfect start of this 5-year journal. So I did pretty well for the first months. And then I fell off. Certain things changed in April, and my family ended up deciding that they were going to move with me. So I ended up going to pick them up, and we did a cross-country move with them as well. And it was a very, very hectic time. So I fell off of the bandwagon. And then I went back in, I think in August, which was when I ended up finding Abby's and James and Job's and Megan Rhiannon and etc., all of these creators that create Hobonichi content, or at least partial Hobonichi content. I found their videos, and then that led me to the next section. Something that I did want to mention about the 5-year diary, I will be, obviously it's a 5-year journal, I will be going into it next year as well. for the next 5 years. And I did want to mention that because I did fall off, right? Like I have like maybe 2 days in August and that's about it. I mentioned this in another video that I don't know if it's going to be uploaded before this one or not, but to me, it doesn't stress me out, at least for the most part, when journals have empty spaces. Because when I get back to it next year, right? Like it's July 31st, right? And I'm gonna fill in my thing in this one. All of this is also going to inform me, right? Like I don't know what I was doing this day, but I know that I didn't get into this journal. And that in and of itself is information, right? Like there's also value in that. And saying, oh yeah, you know, I was experiencing this, right? Because we don't just experience moments where we're producing and where we're doing exactly what we want to do and what we set out to accomplish. Like there are moments where we fall off the bandwagon, where we fall off whatever it is that we want to be doing. And that is just part of life, right? So I'm gonna have a beginning of the year that is gonna be full, and maybe next year I'll not do anything in January and I'll have an empty year. That's fine. I'm gonna put it behind me, say cut my losses and continue. And you know what, once I finish this video, I'll go ahead and write something in here and we'll continue on. So yeah, that's gonna go ahead and continue into 2024. I'll talk about that in the second video too, just as a recap. So come August-ish, summer of nope, not you. We're getting ahead of ourselves. August. Yeah, August. I watched, I think, Abby's video and some other content creators. And I decide I'm gonna buy the Hobonichi original, which I decorated with this like beautiful washi tape. I'm obsessed with how I decorated this cover. And I buy the Weeks because I decided that the Weeks was most like what I used to do with media journaling, right? So I buy them both. The Weeks obviously took off. For those of you that have seen some of my media content, let me see what I can show here, because I haven't censored all of these pages yet. Yeah, sure, why not? We can do this one. Media journal definitely set off. We have been in here every week since. We started this August. Let's see, I'm pretty sure this was the first one. Yep. I'm pretty sure it was August 17th, right? So let me zoom you in here a little bit. This is when we started, August 17th. And I have been in here ever since, right? Consistently. Even if I'm not filling this in every day, I keep track of what I'm watching, what I'm reading, what I'm, etc., what I'm consuming, and I come in and I fill it in. So this has been a huge success. I don't know yet if I'm going to be continuing my media journal in a Weeks. I did purchase a Weeks for it, right? Like we have our new Weeks here. I'm going to be posting what I did to kind of decorate these covers. So I did purchase a Weeks in preparation for next year, but to be determined because I have to receive my Paper Test Designs B6. And if I like that for the Weeks, then I'll be moving my media journal into the Paper Test Designs. If not, we'll continue with this one, but definitely going to continue with the media journal. Now, the A6, on the other hand, was not as successful. There is some censoring here, guys, but you know, I wanted to show you what I could. So I did start doing it as a daily, but I'm one of two things. Either I forget to write on a daily basis, or if I do want to write, I want to write a lot, right? I noticed through trial and error, and you'll see that I'll talk a bit more about that when I get into the AVEC, that I'm just not a daily journaler. I have to accept that I'm not really someone who goes into their journals every single day. Or I'm also the type of person that wants to go into a journal for the day, right? Multiple times. So, you know, either extreme. I'm a person of extremes. All of my friends could tell you that. So I did do this for a few, 1, 2, 3, okay, I can show this one. You know, I kept up with it maybe a couple days, maybe 2 weeks, but fell off. It wasn't working for me. I felt like it was much too little space. And if you'll notice here in this spread, I did end up doing like a little like mini scheduling kind of thing, kind of things I did throughout the day, but again, too small. And then just some journaling, small journaling. Yeah, it's not for me. I stand by the fact that I love the A6 size, but I didn't really use the monthlies. And I don't really care for the dailies. So sadly, if I'm gonna use an A6 size, it's gonna have to be for like a journal, right? Like a pocket journal, like an A6 𝙦𝙧𝙚 or something. But sadly for the Hobonichi, let me not get ahead of myself. I keep wanting to get ahead of myself, guys. I'm sorry. When I'm talking about something, when I'm talking about something with my friends or whatever, wow, my cat is like staring at me from the other side of this, like she's over there. She just looked into my soul. I'm sorry. What was I saying? I told you guys this was going to be a more chaotic video. When I'm talking about things that I really enjoy, right? I sometimes will forget to finish a thought before I start another one. So I apologize in advance for the chaos of this video, but I hope that you're understanding me a little bit. And then I tried to kind of, yeah, actually, like I did like some planning for other journals. I tried to like use it, some planning for habits to keep track of, for stickers that I want to make. You know, I don't like the idea of having a journal that just has no use. In contrast to the 5-year, right? I was just talking about how emptiness shouldn't be upsetting. This is something that it'll outgrow the empty pages, right? Like even if I don't complete every single day in this for a year, I have 5 years worth of content that I can put in here. I don't really have a use for these pages after the year is done. So this is different to me in that it does feel like a waste, right? And at the end of the day, these types of situations, they inform, right? They especially since I was getting back into the planner realm, I didn't know what I liked anymore. You know, when I first started planning, I used to use the Passion Planner before. Like that was the first thing I ever used, was the Passion Planner. And that worked for me then. And then after I went into the Bujo scene, right? And bullet journaling really worked for me then as well. But then I grew out of those. Life changes, and I started doing digital, but then digital ended up being something that I also grew out of. And in this stage of my life, I decided that I wanted to go back to analog, but I didn't know where to start, right? So I started with this one, and it just ended up being that this is not the right fit, and that's okay. Does it suck because I paid money for this? Yes. 100% it does. But sadly, that's the name of the game. If I wanted to really, really badly, if I had no other means of purchasing something else, then I would have to make this work, right? Or go into something that was different, that wouldn't cost me any money. Fortunately, it was within my grasp to move on from this and say that this isn't for me, right? So sadly, I will not be purchasing this again. Well, I guess not sadly. Sadly that I won't be finishing this journal, but I will not be purchasing it again. Yeah, it's not for me. Like 100%. I have absolutely not a single bit of doubt that even though I love the A6 size, this is just not the one. And I'll have to love this cover from afar. But definitely keeping the media journal. So that is that. So as I was trying to figure out what to do about the fact that this wasn't working, I wanted to try out the cousin. Now, here's my thing with the cousin. Whereas the A6 size is too small. The A5 size is too big. It's just too big. I used to use the Leuchtturm 1917 a lot, and I didn't realize that that was an A5 size. This to me feels like it's so much bigger than the Leuchtturm, and they are the same size. It's an A5. That being said, I didn't really use the monthlies very much, so that was a waste, right? Oh, so I didn't want to pay for a full cousin because it was already August and I wasn't even sure if I was gonna stay in this journal. So what I really wanted was to see if I could find an AVEC of just the second half of the year. So I didn't want to buy the full year because, again, it was already August, right? I did manage to find on Etsy someone was selling just the July to December AVEC, which was exactly what I wanted for this testing purposes, right? So I received it, and the first week I started using it was August 28th, which was the 35th week of the year. And I tried doing time blocking. This is very similar to what I used to use in the Passion Planner back in the day, back in the day, because it was a long time ago. And this wasn't working at all. This didn't work for me at all. I'm a virtual assistant, plus I have 2 businesses. So I have like the virtual assistant business, and I have my creative side business, right, where I'm going to be doing, YouTube and writing and what have you. And my schedule just this wasn't conducive for me to figure out what I needed to be doing in a day that was organized. I really love people who can use this for time blocking, but my brain wasn't computing with this format. So what I ended up trying was memory keeping. And if you've seen some of my videos, this might look familiar because it's something that I ended up moving over into another journal. So this one, I did start off trying to keep a log of the times, right? So I was just going back in and writing what I did in the day just to have like a memory log. And I really liked that, but I did not keep up with it. So I think I have like maybe one more week that I did it, and then I didn't do it again. It was not a thing. Yeah, I don't know why. I wouldn't be able to tell you why. I think it was just the fact that I just sorry guys, I need to like recalibrate my brain so that my brain is going faster than what my mouth is speaking. Okay, I'm good. I think that since I was overall not happy with the rest of the journal, that there wasn't really a point for me to continue on this. So in the dailies, I did try to do daily journaling, but as I mentioned, I'm just not someone who comes into their journals every single day. Just the thought of having to do that really stresses me out. It's just too much pressure. I wouldn't be able to tell you why it's too much pressure, but it is. And so I did that one day and did not do it again. Yeah, no. So then I started doing the dailies to like have a to-do list, because really what I wanted to do was, organize my life. There's so many different pieces to what I do in a day, because I'm a virtual assistant, but I have multiple clients and every client is different, and I have tasks for every single client. Plus I have to, figure out what I'm going to do on my end. So I really needed to organize my life. And so I tried doing, using the dailies as a to-do list, and that worked for a little bit. I think I did that for maybe a whole week. But what I didn't like was that the tasks that I didn't end up completing, I ended up having to move them. And sometimes I was moving the same task throughout the whole week. So I started off on Monday, and if I didn't finish it until Friday, I had to move that same task 5 or 4 other times. And at the beginning, I was like, that's fine, because that's gonna make me want to complete the task. But in practice, that just wasn't the case. It was just annoying to have to do that over and over and over again. So I was using this side with like up to the invisible line for tasks, and then I was using this as notes. Now, the additional problem with that is that one of my clients requires me to take a lot of notes sometimes, not every day, but sometimes I do have to make a lot of notes, and this space would just not be enough sometimes. So that was another thing that I was having issues with. So what I decided to do, so that I wouldn't have to, I'm trying to make the best of this planner, right? I already purchased it. I don't want to have to purchase something again. What can I do within it to kind of modify it for myself? So the thing that I ended up deciding was a running to-do list on the first day of the week. In this case, it was a Sunday, and then I would use the remaining days of that week as note pages for the different things that I had to do, if that client needed me to take notes, etc. So what I ended up doing was the 𝙘𝙧𝙧 method. I wrote up here the weekdays just so that I was easy at a glance. I could see which ones they were. And then I had, you know, notes pages for, you know, all the tasks I needed to do, etc. for the rest of the week. And that was good. I didn't dislike that. But again, I felt like it was a waste to do that in this notebook. And unfortunately for me, I am easily persuaded. I am easily persuaded by haul videos. I say it time and time again. Haul videos are dangerous things. So, could I have continued doing it this way? Absolutely. But I got an itch, and I needed to scratch that itch. So what I ended up doing was moving over. So before I continue talking about what this evolved to, let's backtrack a little bit into what I ended up doing from the evolved weekly, right? So those of you who have seen my videos have seen this. This is my media memory keeping TN. So in here is where my media journal lives, right? So let me show you what that would look like. All right, I kind of tuck this in here. Right, and that's where my media journal lives. I have stickers. I have my media journal companion, which is for more like art journaling spreads. I haven't actually ended up doing anything in here except paste in some of the receiptifies that I still have to decorate. But I'll be adding stuff into that soon. I have my sticker book that I originally used to put in one of the jump bands, but I just like tuck this in here now, and since it's like sealed shut, it's not going anywhere. So I do that. And then I have this baby, which is my pride and joy after the media journal. The media journal is my baby. This is my pride and joy. So this is, let me see what I can show you here. And I'll just show you this week. Oh, actually, let's just show you. Yeah, that's fine. So I really enjoyed doing this, right? But since I was gonna move out of the AVEC, I decided that I would get a TN insert with the weekly verticals and do it in there, right? And so I have been doing that consistently. Now, the way that I modified this one, I got an undated one, right? Because what I wanted to do was use it for the last quarter, right? And in order to do that, I didn't want to have like empty pages, a bunch of empty pages at the end. What I decided was that I would fill out my week as I normally had been, right? Kind of just like jotting down things that happened in the day as blurbs. And this is really how I like journaling about my day, more so than like a daily like essay per se that you would do in like a daily page in the AVEC or the cousin. I really enjoy kind of like blurbing out things that happened in the day instead of just like a full-on essay type journaling session. So I would do that for like one spread, and then I would talk about my week via images in the second spread. So each week would get two spreads, a heavy word-based one and a visual aid one, right? So that way I'll end up finishing this one with only 2 spreads left, I think, but definitely not half of it left over. So same thing here. I did mostly writing, and then I did a visual representation of my week. And this could possibly change in the new year, depending on whether I end up going into the paper test, designs B6 or not. If I do end up going into the paper test, then basically this media journal from in the weeks and this TN will get married, have a baby, and the baby will be the B6. The paper test design is B6. I'll be merging the two. If not, then this will continue into the next year, right? Because I do really enjoy, I love looking in this, looking through the spreads, and even if I don't read it, right? Because sometimes I don't necessarily want to read it. I particularly enjoy the visual aspect of it. So highly recommend. If you were to do this consistently throughout the year, then you'll end up with 4 inserts, right? Because you'll have one for each quarter, because it pretty much can contain, if I'm not mistaken, this has enough pages for a half a year. So if you were to duplicate each spread to have 2 spreads, then that's your quarter, right? So I think it's a really good option. And I love it. I absolutely love this. So we will see, based on when we get the paper test designs notebook, whether we will continue inside, where's the middle? Whether we will continue inside this system or modify it slightly. And even if we do end up, I say we, as if it's multiple of us, even if I do end up changing the notebooks that they live in, the system will remain almost the same. There's nothing, I have nothing that I would like to change about my memory keeping media journaling system. That's something that is probably more important to me than my planning system even. Take that with a grain of salt though, because I need to organize my life with so many things that I have to juggle in a day. Okay, so that's how my weekly vertical memory keeping evolved from the AVEC. How about how my planning into the running to-do list? Yeah, so this evolved into this journal. So one of the things that I was keeping track of in one of the monthlies, I can't remember, I think it was maybe the weeks one. Oh, because I also did end up buying another weeks at some point and use that as like a health tracker, personal health tracker. And you might have seen this one before. I was using it as kind of like a health tracker type situation, tracking things that happen throughout the day, meal times, gratitude, habits, sleep schedule. And I've been kind of going back and forth on different spreads and not really finding anyone that kind of like worked super well for me. So this has been very experimental, and yeah, that's really all I have to say about this one, because it makes me sad, because I haven't really figured out what I want to do with that yet. And so in that week's, I think it was in that week's or in maybe in here, I'm not sure. I first started recording things for, you know, like landscaping and the amount of times that they went in, and we used fuel and oil for like our heater in the house. So things for the house, I needed a way to keep track of them. So originally I started tracking that in the months. I eventually ended up starting tracking it in one of these like little supplements. But I hate this little supplement. I couldn't tell you why, but I don't like it very much. So what I decided was that I would get a monthly insert. This is the 2023 one. I'm sorry, the 2024 one. And I'm gonna go ahead and keep track of those things in this insert. And then I have my work TN. And this is where I keep my running to-do list. And hold on, because for privacy, confidential purposes, I can't show you. Yeah, okay. So this is like a blank one. So I do have a setup video. I'll go ahead and link that in the cards for how I set this up. But essentially what I end up doing is I divide it up here. I have like tasks that I need to complete in specific days on this side for me and my specific like business stuff. And then I have specific events for clients on this side. And then I have my running to-do list on this page. So essentially, this exact setup is replicated on this page. And then I have more day specific tasks on this one. And you can see that I have like a date specific task here. I am doing a course, a writing course in December, and I have here the dates that those will be taking place. I apologize for my cat. She decided that she wants to start screaming in the background, so I'm sorry if you can hear her. I will link, by the way, this workshop in the description if you're interested. It is by Marley Grace, and it is called Write the Personal. It's a Zoom workshop for, you know, writing personal essays and all that. There are scholarships available and payment plans, so if you are interested in that, I will link that below. But yeah, that's how this ended up coming into the system. And then I do have another insert, which is a reference insert. And what that is about is that in the back here, I used to keep like just certain notes about like the business, the client that I work for, because there are some things that I have to be referencing, some information. It kind of serves like as a wiki type thing, and that's not necessarily time bound, so I wanted an insert that I could kind of just keep in here that would not be time sensitive. It's just gonna continue growing as I put more information in there and what have you. So that's my work setup essentially. This may or may not change in the next year. It's gonna really depend on whether I end up moving into a weeks or not. So we shall see. To be determined in the next part. You will find out whether, you know, you will find out how my current systems will change in the new year. So aside from this, I also use, actually I forgot to mention, I use a little field notes, and this is for, as I mentioned, I take a lot of notes for some of my clients. So what I ended up deciding was that I would use field notes to kind of house those notes. And that way, once I finish one field notes, I can chuck it, because I don't really need to keep these notes. They're just for like tasks that need to get done. So I felt like that was a perfect way of kind of consolidating the whole issue. So I have a little field notes that lives with this, and this is in fact my work setup. And then I did forget to mention that, going back to my media journal, this is what happens, guys, when you don't have a clear idea of what you're going to be doing in a video. So with my media journal, let me, you know what, that's fine. So I have the media journal companion, which I set up a couple weeks ago. I have another video on that. They'll be in the cards. Let me get these stuff out of the way. Bear with me. Forgot I put this clip in here to hold the weeks. Okay. So I have the media companion in here, and that's for kind of art journaling spreads, kind of like a yearly overview of what I ended up consuming. And then in my weeks, I keep a log of all the things that I watched and read and listened to. This little field notes lives next to where I watch TV. And what this is basically, it's, okay, how do I explain this? This might be just a me experience, but when I'm watching something, I tend to need to do one of two things. When I was younger, I used to live tweet. So as I was watching something, I would live tweet my reactions to it, or live vlog on Tumblr. As I got older, what I would end up doing is I would text my best friend as I was watching something. And I will still do that if it's something that they've watched, or if it's something that I've talked to them about and they don't mind. Now, what ended up happening is that I started watching a show that my best friend really didn't care about. and I needed to react to it as I was watching it. I had that need. I had again, an itch I needed to scratch. So what I ended up doing was that I took this little notebook, and as I was watching the show, I would write down what I would call live tweeting or live texting, just my reactions. And it's essentially just a little book full of my reactions to things as I've been watching them. So in here I have, for example, She Dies Tomorrow, right? So like I was watching the movie, and as I'm watching the movie, I'm writing things down, and it's really fun because after I finish watching it, I have like my reactions to it. So he like Scream 3. I haven't taken notes on the other two, but I just had to talk about how wild the concept of phone cars was. Like, I get it. They walked so cell phones could run, but still. Oh, love it when a movie TV show characters are named Christine. Right? And then in Scream 3, what's his name? Oh my goodness. Patrick Dempsey. Patrick Dempsey is in Scream 3, but I didn't know that. So when he shows up, apparently I wrote Derek Shepherd? Question mark, exclamation point. So it's basically just a little like live reactions, right? And it's really nice because sometimes things will happen that are complete plot twists, and I'm like freaking out about them, and I can go back and see them. Or like I have a theory and I write down the theory, and then it ends up being that the theory was incorrect, so I can be like, ha, you're so dumb, as I'm rereading these. So yeah, I don't live write, what would I call this? Live narrate? It's essentially like a narration of when I'm watching things. I don't do it for everything, but some things I do. It'll depend on my mood. Like I pretty much did it for every single Flanagan show. I did it for Midnight Mass. Let's see. I did it for Hill House. I have to do a rewatch of Bly Manor, and once I do that, then I will probably do that as well. I only have a few pages left in this one, but if you are someone that likes to have to like react as you're watching something, you know, us people who like to talk while we watch shows or movies, not everyone does, but if you are, definitely suggest doing this because it's really fun to kind of go over it and see what it was. So once it's time for me to archive my 2023 notebooks, this will go with my media journal, and it'll be there, and it'll be amazing and fun. And this is probably one of my favorite things, because also one of the reasons why I keep this is that sometimes I don't get to write reviews of what I like watched. I'm not very eloquent when it comes to reviews, and so this is a really cool way of seeing what I was feeling and experiencing as I was watching it, without the need of having to do like a review, which aren't really my jam. So that's one way I use the field notes. Another way I use the field notes as just as a catch-all notebook that I take around with me and just like jot notes down. And then the third way that I use the field notes is, as I mentioned, with work. So I think I covered all of my bases for my 2023 planners and journals. Let's see, am I missing anything? I got my media journal. I got the field notes. I talked about the Hobonichi AVEC. I talked about my work journal. I talked about the Hobonichi A6 and the 5-year. If you guys can see the stack from this side, yeah, let me just like figure out how to do this. Yeah, it's a mess. There's a lot of notebooks here. Don't fall for overconsumption. If you can figure out your system without having to purchase all of these, that would be the best, obviously. I'm trying to go into 2024 and not have this situation happen. I don't want to have to buy a bunch of other notebooks. I'm really hoping that with the addition of the B6 paper test designs, that'll kind of cement what I'm doing and I won't have to buy a bunch of stuff. I do think that, you know, experimenting is important. And if you can find ways to do that in ways that aren't as expensive to you, then please do that. Like what I ended up doing with this AVEC was definitely I think, smart choice, right? Because I knew that I wasn't going to go through a whole cousin, and I knew that I really didn't need the second portion of the AVEC. So I was able to find a more cost-effective way of experimenting with this. And as you saw, this one didn't work, but it really informed the ones that did work, right? Like, from what I got in here, the information that I received from using this one, I was able to get a system for my for my work journals and a system for my memory keeping journal, and those work, right? Like, these are systems that work for me, and so I wouldn't have been able to do that if I wouldn't have experimented inside the AVEC, right? So don't be afraid to experiment. I understand that it is not in everyone's ability to purchase a bunch of planners and a bunch of journals, and that's okay, and you shouldn't feel the need to, and if you can't, then definitely don't. This is not like an extreme necessity. Like, yes, it's important to be organized. Yes, it's important to figure out, what your to-dos are. But it's more important to eat and have a place to live in, right? Like, don't get it twisted in that sense. Like, 100% I'm aware that it is not in everyone's ability to, go crazy experimenting. Now, that being said, do I regret doing what I did? Yes and no. It's twofold. I don't like that I spent all that money, but it led to informing my current systems that do work. So do what is best for you and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So that's that. This is a 40-ish minute video, and I still have to talk about my plans for 2024. So that will be in the next video. Thank you so much for being here with me. I apologize for the chaos that ensued as I was explaining all of these things, but I hope that they made sense. I hope that my failures could inform your successes. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. As usual, everything that I mentioned, YouTube channels, classes, resources, will be in the description as well. And yeah, I think that is the gist of it. I will catch you in the next video. Bye!